Good afternoon, church. Um, on this Memorial Day weekend, I thought I would actually not talk about memorials and actually talk a little about testimonials, just because that's kind of what's been on my mind lately. I'm actually not on social media at all, and there's kind of three reasons for that. The first reason is really kind of easy, which is kind of bluntly, Connie's on social media and I can totally free ride. If anything's going on, she can let me know and update me. And so I'm not on Facebook or Twitter or anything like that. The second reason I'm not is that I'm an economics professor, and to be really honest, errors in economics kind of make me want to correct them. And so I regularly have this problem of someone will say something that I just know is wrong. And I just will have this burning desire to sort of write something up and correct the error of their ways. There's a great cartoon out there of this guy, and it's dark out in his window, and he's typing away on the computer, and he's yelling to his wife downstairs, honey, I still can't come down for dinner. Someone's saying something wrong on the internet. That's kind of me with regard to economics. If I were on social media, I would spend just way too much time trying to correct errors in economics. But if I'm being really honest, there's another reason I'm not on social media, that is my desire to sort of correct errors, the things that make me mad, don't stop at economics. There are all sorts of things said on social media that make me angry, and I don't have any expertise in them. Right? A lot of people's postings about the virus on sort of one side of the debate or another infuriate me. Postings on all sorts of things. And so I find it's just better for me not to be on social media because of that. I've been thinking lately about why that is. Why do I have that reaction in areas that are not in my expertise, where I don't have any idea whether what the person is saying is true or not, and yet I still have this burning desire to sort of respond to that post by saying, you're wrong, studies show, something like that. And I decided that I think part of it is I don't like the fact that we live in a testimonial culture, right? That was kind of my safe spot. It was like, we live in a culture where, since everybody has access to a platform, everybody can say whatever makes them feel good, or sort of whatever they believe. And I get this from my students sometimes. I'll correct something in an intro econ class, and someone will say, well, that's my opinion, or well, that's just what I believe. And I kind of don't like that aspect of our culture, that my feelings, my opinions, sort of those matter more than, say, I don't know, in the case of my intro econ class, facts. So I was pretty comfortable in my I hate testimonial stance, kind of sitting there, yelling at the kids to get off my lawn. And then last week, Leanne did a really wonderful devotional that kind of got me thinking that maybe there was more to this than I was I was giving it credit. If you remember last week, Leanne did a devotional on the woman at the well, the story of Jesus and the woman at the well, and it was a fantastic devotional. Leanne did just a great job, and it really kind of illuminated that story in a way I kind of hadn't thought about before. But it was the ending of that story that really knocked me out of my I hate testimonial stance. And if you remember how the story ends, in John 4:28 to 30, it says, then, leaving her water jar, the woman went back to town and said to people, come, see the man who told me everything I ever did. Could this be the Messiah? And they came to the town, and they made their way to him. And then a little later, many of the Samaritans from that town believed in him because of the woman's testimony. He told me everything I ever did. And so the Samaritans came to him, and they urged him to stay with them. And he stayed for 2 days. And because of his words, more became believers. And they said to the woman, we no longer believe just because of what you said. We have heard for ourselves that this man is really the Savior of the world. Now, if you remember Leanne's setup to that story, the fascinating thing about that was this woman was a mess. She had 7 husbands. She was going to the well in the middle of the day because she was being socially ostracized, and she just couldn't, stand going when it was cool in the morning or the evening, because people would look at her and treat her like she was an outcast. And so she was there in the heat of the day, and she met this rabbi. And I thought, well, this woman's testimonial was all about her feelings, right? Why am I having this reaction to people's social media posts, right? When, this story, this powerful story of this woman's, her feelings, her emotions, her reaction to Jesus brings this whole village into the kingdom. And so I started kind of going through the scriptures and looking for sort of different passages on testimony. And the passages on testimony are shot through the Old and New Testament. In Psalms, David declares, "I will declare your name to my people. In the assembly I will praise you." In Matthew, a really famous passage, Matthew 5:14-16, "You are a light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp or put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on a stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, your light shines before others, that they may see the good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." And even in suffering, Luke, in chapter 21, verse 12 and 13 says, "Before all this, they will seize and persecute you. They will hand you over to the synagogues and put you in prison, and you will be brought before kings and governors, all on the account of my name, and you will bear testimony to me." So here's the puzzle, right? Why do the testimonies about things like the virus or people's social media posts, something that they're feeling intensely, why does that bother me so much? And yet there's all these powerful stories about testimony in the Bible. I think I have an answer for that. And I think the answer is there's a difference between tribal testimony and kingdom testimony. And let me explain what I mean by tribal versus kingdom testimony. I think a lot of the social media posts that people put up are tribal testimonies. They're testimonies that score points for my side. And here's what I mean by that. Brothers and sisters, we're kind of hardwired to be tribal. When our side, the people we identify with, score a win, you know what happens? We get a rush of endorphins. We just feel better about ourselves. And those make us feel safer and more secure. That is, we seem to be in a position where even if we don't have any idea whether our side's victory is better or worse, we feel better about ourselves. Think about it. That's team sports. That's board games, right? We set up a set of rules, and then we feel really good when we win, but there's really nothing at stake. There's nothing of consequence. We just pick a tribe and we sort of go for it. There's this great study of some boys in the 1940s that they sent out into the woods, and they just arbitrarily assigned them teams. One was like Team Red and Team Blue. And within a very few days, these boys identified so much so that they would actually steal things only from people in the other team. They would only fight with people from the other team. They really latched on to their tribe, even though the tribe was just given to them, because it made them feel safe in this strange circumstance. I think that's a lot of what those testimonies that people are putting up on social media are all about. They're all about, I'm scared right now. I feel threatened. I feel afraid. What would make me feel better is if I was part of a tribe. When I was in graduate school, one of my classmates was a woman from Yugoslavia. This would have been the early 90s. And in the middle of that graduate program, Yugoslavia descended into civil war. And this woman, who was a Bosnian Serb, immediately began talking at lunch about all these atrocities committed by Bosnian Muslims in the Middle Ages. Even thousands of miles removed, it was important for her to be part of that tribe. And I think we want to be really careful with tribal testimonies, right? Because what it's really about is, how does it make me feel if I'm right and the other tribe is wrong? Think about this as an alternative story to the woman at the well that Leanne gave us. So the woman at the well, in my alternative story, she comes back to this little village in Samaria, and she says, "You'll never guess what happened to me." And just because I can't keep calling her the woman at the well, I'll name her Babs. I do that because, actually, apparently the name everybody's picking on right now is Karen, but I know lots of Karens that I really like, and I don't know any Babs. So if a Babs is watching this, I apologize. But Babs, the woman at the well, comes back to that village and she says, "You'll never guess what happened to me, people. I, I met a Jewish rabbi at our well." Well, now, everybody would pause for a moment and look, and she goes, "Yeah, I go to the well at noon so you people can't shun me." But that's not the point. The point is, I met a Jewish rabbi at our well. And you know what that Jewish rabbi did? He asked to borrow my cup to get a drink. And now everybody in the village is listening because this is pretty different, right? And she says, "And you know what I told him? I told him, no, I'm not giving you a drink out of my cup. I'm not doing that. You're a Jew and I'm a Samaritan. I don't want anything to do with you." And everybody in the village would be nodding. "Oh yeah, we actually thought Babs was kind of a bad egg, but no, maybe she's part of our tribe." And then Babs says, not only that, he started talking nonsense about living water and eternal salvation. And I said, "None of that, Rabbi, none of that. I'm a Samaritan. I don't want any of your living water. Go away." And I chased him off from our well. And now everybody's like, "Oh, Babs isn't so bad. She's a member of our tribe." And that brief moment, Babs would feel included. She would feel better. Those endorphins I was talking about would kick in, and Babs would feel like she was part of the group. But we all know how this ends, right? We all know how this ends. In the end, it would dawn on people that she was still the woman with 7 husbands, and they didn't want her around their children because she was kind of a bad example, and they sure didn't want her around their husbands. And so Babs would go back to being the outcast. And people would forget about that rabbi who wandered over the hill with his crazy stories about living water. And they would go back to remembering Babs and her 7 husbands, and she would be an outcast again. In the event, what Babs did was she took a bigger risk. She didn't tell a story that was going to make everybody include her in the tribe. She told a story that they might have made her even more of an outcast. She told a story about a rabbi who said, I know how you can be forgiven for your sins. I know how you can have a relationship with God. And she wanted to tell people about that. And I think her life, in some sense, that example of who she became after that encounter with Jesus, that led people to say, wait, something's really different here, right? I want to get a piece of that. I want to be a part of that. That's not tribal anymore. That's a kingdom testimony. I think about all the people I know in this time when we're all going through a difficult struggle, when we're all scared and we're all feeling exposed and vulnerable. And I think about the opportunity we have to kind of give testimonies about the kingdom. And to be honest, how few of us Christians are doing that. How few of us are really saying, here's what the kingdom could mean in your life at this moment. So I want to hold up one person that's been doing that a lot lately, and I'm just going to call her out, and I hope she's not embarrassed by this. But Jill and Randy have been leading a really wonderful Bible study on Wednesday night, and Jill begins that Bible study every time with just talking about how she's doing that week and about what she misses and about, just she calls it her icebreaker. What I love about Jill is that Jill's really open and vulnerable about this. That is, Jill, if you don't know, is in a high-risk category. She's someone who all the evidence suggests is really at risk for this virus. So Jill, I think, could easily just pick a tribe, right? She could be on tribe, this is a hoax, right? And she could say, oh, this is no worse than the flu. And I could see why that would make her feel better. Or she could join Team Face Mask, right? She could be one of those people that sees someone across the street 30 feet away in a strong headwind and yells, "Put on a mask!" But Jill's not doing any of that, right? Her testimony isn't about that at all. It's about the role of faith in her life and how that gets her through what must be a real struggle with feeling so exposed in this time of pandemic. A funny thing happened in my house last week. Also on the Bible study, we started talking about this viral video. And in the viral video, the rapper Snoop Dogg has gone out to his car and he says, I'm just going to listen to my tunes. I need to unwind a little bit. And he starts playing the song Let It Go from Frozen. The woman who sang the song Let It Go from Frozen then posted a response video, which is her sitting in her car listening to the Snoop Dogg song Drop It Like It's Hot. It's quite funny, but I have to confess, I had never heard of the song Drop It Like It's Hot. That might not be a surprise. But I actually had also never listened to the song "Let It Go" from the Frozen cartoon. Now that's a little strange because one, it's quite old, and two, I've worked a lot of musicals with the Sunmans in which a lot of kids have been singing that song, but I just never knew what it was. So I've been roaming around the house all week with my earphones in, singing "Let It Go." And Connie thinks this is hysterical. She actually thinks it's a sign that maybe the pandemic is ending because at this point her 52-year-old husband has turned into a 5-year-old girl. But it's kind of where I'm at. I'm kind of at that point where I need to let it go. I need to not have tribal testimony. I need to have kingdom testimony. And Jill's been a real inspiration in that. And I think that's my lesson for this devotional is let it go. Let it go. God will pick up that burden for you. Your testimony is about how his faith works through you in this time when we are all in need of being closer to him. So that's my message for today. Will you pray with me? Dear God, please allow us to give kingdom testimonies about the power of you and your Son and what you've done in our lives, Lord. Lord, sometimes we would just feel better if our tribe won, if our tribe scored. But Lord, that's not your kingdom. Your kingdom is for everyone. It doesn't have winners and losers. And Lord, please help me to let it go. The cold never bothered me anyways. Thank you all. Be safe and be well, and I'll see you soon.